Okay, so this leaker is being an a-hole and posting more and more, and it seems very legitimate. And we're going to have to talk about it now because even though I'm on holiday and I wasn't planning to make a video, brought a camera for this exact reason. This video, we're going to go over what we're seeing in the leaks, but also what the risks are for Rockstar right now, what the risks are for the leaker. I'm amazed that this leaker is doing this. Given what happened to the leaker who leaked in 2022, there's a lot very risky to do. What do we actually know right now? So we know that there is leaked footage. It appears to be genuine GTA 6 material. The strongest evidence suggests interactive access to a playable build, not merely a possession of pre-recorded clips, which means this person seems to have GTA 6. And the reason we know that is because the gameplay that they've been showing off, they literally wrote their damn name into the wall with bullet holes into a urban area, most likely by city. So it doesn't prove that they have the current or final retail build, which means it's not necessarily the case that they have GTA 6 in the way that you and I will have in November 19, but they definitely have some sort of file that is giving them access to what they're filming, or more importantly, what they or someone else may be filming. And that's because we don't know whether the leaker personally possesses the build or is accessing it remotely or through someone else. Could literally be that they are paying someone within Rockstar or within an external QA company to film footage for them. Long story short, we don't know how they got access, which is actually probably scariest for Rockstar because it means all sorts of things could happen. Not only could they be leaking the final cutscene, the final gameplay, which would essentially be storyline spoilers and the biggest of them. So right now it appears that they are capable of controlling gameplay rather than simply releasing Rockstar recorded footage. So far, the footage is covering driving, combat, flying, free roam activities, and radio UI user interface interaction, which is why the apparent leak bullet hole demonstration looks deliberately created to prove that they can control this thing. It's not just that they've managed to get a hold of the internal clips within Rockstar for marketing material or whatever. So the situations that are possible: full development build, that's like one of the worst ones. QA testing build, restricted preview build, remote development environment, a compromised machine account, or someone else controlling the build and supplying footage. So essentially, these ones right here, these are probably some of the worst and most scary ones. Someone else controlling the build or footage, that is essentially like saying that Rockstar employee or someone outside of Rockstar who has been given footage, like, for example, potentially journalists in a preview event, for example, may have also supplied this footage. So what type of build could this be? It could be internal development build, which would potentially offer broad access, debug functionality, and unfinished content. So it could have specific save states, limited missions, certain systems enabled, areas unlocked for testing. Now, this is important because it means that they may not have access to, for example, it does seem like they have access to Leonardo Keys. It does seem like they have access to Vice City, but they might not have access to, for example, Port Gellhorn. The reason being is that every build, when it comes to this stuff, has different accesses. So, for example, if this was given to them by a QA tester or a journalist who has only been given access to, say, 3 locations within the GTA 6 map, then it means essentially there may be either invisible walls or the game just simply may not have, the software, I should say, simply may not have those other locations. Now, one of the questions I first thought about here was, why aren't they showing more, right? Because they could literally be covering everything in GTA 6, and yeah, it's been like 3 days and they've kind of drip fed this content. So the first possibility is that it's deliberate. So essentially they want to make everything viral. Every small clip that comes out essentially creates a whole new story. It creates absolute anticipation. And frankly, that's actually been Rockstar's internal model for marketing for the past year, right? They drip feed content once a year, basically. The other possibility for why they're not showing more, like I said before, is because they simply only have a certain amount of build. So they only have certain areas, certain missions, etc. I'm not convinced it's that right now. I think it's probably more towards the drip feeding. But the other possibility that's also very, very possible is that they're protecting the source. This one is an interesting one. So oftentimes when it comes to preview builds, in fact, not just preview builds, any game in general, oftentimes, there will be sometimes identifiers. So especially in online games, you'll have a small code at the top left. If you go into a game like Valorant, Fortnite, you will see that there's a user ID, frankly, at the top left, which is really, really faint. And it's basically meant to be faint so that no one really notices it, but it's the way that the developer can see who had access to that code, who had access to that game. I mean, it's actually pretty easy to get around this. Simply just zoom in, for example, which is what leakers do oftentimes. If you just zoom in by like 5% into the video editing, then that code disappears. So I'm not necessarily sure that it is protecting the source, but that's a possibility. The other option is that their access is temporary. So especially if they have remote machine access, let's say they're only able to get into the game for 5 minutes per day, which again, I don't even know how that would happen. But if it was the case, then they would be essentially doing whatever they can with it. So in this case, it could almost be, and especially today with them writing the word leak in the wall, may well be them trying to show, look, I do actually have access to this build. Again, we can't even say that for sure because they could have paid or got a QA tester to do that anyway. And then simply for possibility 5, they may just want leverage. Again, with the whole drip feeding thing, if they show everything off, Rockstar still has a lot more that they have to work against, but they have less to threaten Rockstar with. Think about, unfortunately, how, say, for example, in movies, you have robberies, right? Where the robbers take the hostages and the police try to get the hostages out. The hostages are the leverage. In this case, the content would be the leverage. Could this be connected to GTA 6 preview access? So there are reports and claims that some journalists and creators have received private GTA 6 access around July. And there are claims that the embargo, which is essentially the time at which that they are allowed to, by Rockstar, show off or at least talk about what they've seen, that could be on August 27. That's obviously when the Netflix presentation is. So that would be like the big marketing day for Rockstar. But we can't establish that. So what does preview access normally look like based on how major publishers commonly handle unreleased games or unreleased updates, new servers, new acts, new episodes for Valorant, new seasons for Fortnite? Access may be tied to individual accounts, builds may be purpose-made for previews, users may receive predefined save states. Essentially, the developer chooses what you can and can't access, which is very different to the game that you and I will buy in November, because that is when essentially the entire game essentially is meant to be able to play. Now we're going to go over whether or not Rockstar is doing this themselves. So for theory, there is absolute possibility, and I think that this will come up as a bigger theory over the next week. Rockstar may have done this themselves, and realistically, we can't rule that out. I'm not saying that they are. I really don't think they are. I don't think they are at all. But GTA 6 discussion explodes immediately before Rockstar's biggest gameplay presentation. Each leak creates another wave of press coverage. The leaked footage generally makes GTA 6 look ambitious. The only thing about that is today, if you've seen on social media, we have seen what seems to be flight footage around Vice City, and people are actually worried right now about how fast you can fly across Vice City. People are saying the map looks too small. So this would be backfiring on Rockstar if this was what they were doing. Personally, I don't see this happening. I don't see Rockstar doing all the takedowns. I mean, they would do takedowns regardless, potentially, even if they were staging a leak as such. But I don't think, as someone who's worked in this industry for how long now, Rockstar, this is like, some developers may well do this. Rockstar doesn't need to, and they're unlikely to. Right now, Rockstar's marketing comes from premium access, coming from drip feeding premium content. Leaking at this point doesn't seem to make much sense. They could do, by all means. But yeah, as you can see here, a manufactured leak risks unfinished graphics being judged, bugs becoming viral, story spoilers, security embarrassment, investor concerns, and loss of marketing control. And also the crypto connection. This makes it even worse and less likely. Rockstar has zero incentive to essentially have their game leaked and then associated with a crypto scam, which currently the leaker seems to be promoting a Solana coin crypto scam of some sort. Obviously, by the way, if you're seeing that, don't do anything with that. I wouldn't recommend it, at least. Now, could Rockstar know more than they're saying? It's definitely possible. Public silence doesn't mean that Rockstar internally has no idea what happened. They are taking down videos as fast as they seemingly can. I think it's quite likely that Rockstar has some sense of how this has happened, but it has been interesting how eerily quiet they have been silent about this. Could the leaker have the entire story? This is something we don't know. Like, you're able to fly, drive, shoot, explore, use radio menus. That doesn't demonstrate that you have unrestricted campaign access. What it does say, especially given that we've seen apparently a cutscene between Jason and Cal, I think one of the biggest concerns right now is, yeah, how much do you have? How much is available to this person to leak? And are they going to essentially leak the end of the story of GTA 6 in terms of like, let's say the final cutscene, assuming there is one, are they going to leak that? So what would prove their access is really broad. It would be responding to a very specific public request with new footage, demonstrating different areas immediately after being asked, all that sort of thing. The problem is that they've kind of done a certain part of this in writing their name in the wall. That I think is where people are worrying, including myself. How much does this person have? Could an external partner be the weak point? So oftentimes, potential external environments in AAA games, which Rockstar's games is a AAA studio, it would be QA, which is quality assurance. So people who essentially are hired to make sure that the game doesn't have all those bad interfaces or, more to the point, bugs. Interfaces tend to be, at this point, ironed out. But QA tends to be for things like making sure that there is no way to break the game by accident for players, because that essentially becomes a buggy game. And that's what we saw with Cyberpunk 2027, or sorry, 2077. So why hasn't Rockstar publicly explained anything? The possible reasons: active security investigation, leaker investigation. They don't want to confirm anything in terms of authenticity. They don't want to reward the leaker with attention. I mean, I think about how Strauss Zelnick has been on CNBC interview lately. This just doesn't look good. It doesn't look good, and it probably will be asked at some point, potentially, depending on how it feels for investors. So does this leak hurt Rockstar's August 27 marketing? Potentially, but probably not catastrophically. The leak give people raw mechanics, unfinished gameplay, and individual discoveries. But Rockstar, and I think this is the thing, for one, Rockstar seems to be taking this down on YouTube, which is like the primary platform where this stuff is going to expand. You know, you have like the leaks are showing up on like Twitter, Reddit, etc. And that does have a lot of people watching for sure. But for the casual gamers who are likely to make a lot of GTA 6 player base, a lot of them aren't going to see this. And the biggest YouTubers, and also myself, who's not the biggest YouTuber, but I am not. There's a reason. One of the reasons why I'm not posting any of this is because Rockstar is being really careful. They are taking down everything they possibly can. So for most content creators, aside from the ethics, it's just bad business to post this stuff. We're much better just talking about what we're seeing, essentially. Does this hurt the marketing? It creates hype, for sure. It creates worry, which is also hype. Attention at the end of the day is hype. But is it going to hurt the marketing, and is it going to hurt the game? I think the biggest hurt will be if how much they show off right now, and especially if they show off the cutscene at the end. That's like the nuclear option, basically. One thing I'm actually very, very interested to know is who this person is and what their motivation is, because this could get a lot of people in trouble, really speaking. And we've seen that already with the 2022 leaks. I honestly do wonder how this person feels it's worth it for them. I don't know. For one, it just like there are so many factors, and sometimes it can be something as simple as the leaker themselves or the person who's publishing these leaks may have very little liability, so they may not actually get punished for this. But someone's going to get punished for this, more than likely, because if it's a QA tester, then there will likely be a contract where damages are a big part of it, especially for GTA 6 content. Whoever is sort of the source of this is in real trouble, I'm guessing. Now, if the leaker themselves, if they've hacked into Rockstar's, I don't know, internal services somehow, instead of essentially striking a deal with a QA tester, that's where you're hacking into a company for material damages, essentially. That's where Rockstar is likely to pursue. And we saw with the 2022 leaks that it wasn't just Rockstar, the FBI got involved. So I would be so interested to know who thinks it's worth all the damages that they are essentially potentially bringing to themselves to leak any of this. It's part of the reason why we haven't really seen many GTA 6 leaks. Obviously, we saw them in 2022, and I'm pretty sure with 2022 leaks, the person is now not in the best place. Let's put it that way. So to do this now is, frankly, I am so interested to know why this person has done this. What has given them the incentive that they think that the backlash, and essentially not just backlash, because that's like social backlash, The consequences are things like financial damages, freedom damages, meaning potentially going to the prison. Whoever knows what it may be, I don't know. But I cannot believe this happened. In terms of what we've seen a cut scene between Jason and Cal. We've seen, a plane flying over Vice City. It looks beautiful, although at the same time, it doesn't look completely finished graphics. We've seen Jason fighting some people, and we've seen a few clips in like Keys, Vice City, Ambrosia, it seems. And I would say overall, we've probably seen maybe like 5 minutes worth of leaked stuff potentially around there, 2 to 5 minutes worth, which is insane actually. Like just to get a single frame from the preview build is one thing. To get like 2 to 5 minutes of actual footage is wild.